How can you identify perpendicular lines? In this video, I'm going to show you how to identify perpendicular lines in the world and different examples that you see around you. And I'm going to show you how to identify perpendicular lines looking at equations. Here are some examples of perpendicular lines that we see around us. They use perpendicular lines to create baseball fields, to create that diamond. You see perpendicular lines at intersections for cars when they're driving. You can use perpendicular lines to construct a kite. You can reference to streets using perpendicular lines. And perpendicular lines are used in mathematics. You guys are very familiar with this formula, Pythagoras formula. And let me go ahead and identify the perpendicular lines. This is perpendicular here. This and this are perpendicular. It almost makes like a little L shape. These lines are perpendicular to each other. And right here, perpendicular. And there's perpendicular lines right here. In the previous video, we talked about parallel lines and how their slopes are the same. Well, here's a picture of perpendicular lines. However, their slopes are not the same. Here's the slope of the one line, which is negative 1/3, and the slope of the second line, which is positive 3. Perpendicular, and this is the notation for perpendicular. Since I don't want to have to write perpendicular all the time, I can use that notation. And it is the same thing in geometry and algebra and pre-calculus. Anywhere in mathematics, you'll see this symbol used for perpendicular. Perpendicular lines have opposite and reciprocal slopes. That means that if you have a line that's 3, you're going to flip it and make it 1/3, and then you're going to change the sign of that and make it negative, and you would get the perpendicular slope. So perpendicular slope is opposite and reciprocal. I hope I spelled that right. Reciprocal slope. Identify which lines are perpendicular. Just a reminder, perpendicular slope is opposite and reciprocal. Okay, so that means you got to flip it and change the sign. Let's go and identify the slope for each equation first. And some of the equations are in slope-intercept, and some are in point slope, and some you need to change the slope-intercept to find the slope. So for number 1, our slope is 6. Number 2, we have a horizontal line, so our slope is 0. Number 3, slope is negative 3. And most likely you want to pause this and write down all the equations and then write down the work that I'm doing. See if you can identify the slope yourselves. You should be able to do that by now. M equals 1/2 for number 4. Number 5, we would actually have to manipulate that equation. I would have to minus x to both sides and then divide by negative 8. So I would get slope to be positive 1 all over 8. And for number 6, our slope is going to be positive 1, excuse me. I'm just going to write negative 1. Weird. Oh my goodness, I can't believe I want to write negative 1. There we go, positive 1. Okay, for the second column, A, we divide everything by 3, 3 and 3. My slope is going to be 1/3. B, slope is negative 1. C, this is a vertical line, so my slope is going to be undefined. D, slope is negative 2. E, slope is negative 1 and 6. F, slope is 1/8. Now just a reminder, we want to look for slopes that are opposite and reciprocal. So opposite sign and reciprocal. Let's look at number 1. Number 1, our slope is 6. So if I flip that, I get 1, 6. And if I change the sign, it becomes negative. So E is our perpendicular slope. Number 2, slope is 0. And the opposite of that and reciprocal of that would be C. See, if I have a vertical line and a horizontal line, they become perpendicular. Number 3, I have negative 3. So if I flip that, I get negative 1/3. And if I change the sign, it becomes positive 1/3. And that's A. I'm going to go ahead and let you do number 4, 5, and 6 on your own. Rewatch the video if you're a little confused on how to identify perpendicular slope. Bring this to the class tomorrow if you have questions, and so we can go over this in class together.